Hello, my friends. This is the show, This Passionate Life, and I am your host, Stephanie Zito. I'm an intuitive soul purpose coach, an energy shifter, energy healer, and psychic medium. To me, everything is energy. And so, as we navigate this world, I'm really here to help us to truly live our passions with freedom and feeling aligned, feeling centered. Like, what is my path? And let me be on it. And whatever's holding me back, I know that I have the tools to release that stuff so I can get there. All right, so today's topic is something that I'm super passionate about. I feel like it's been coming up a lot with clients and in my workshop sessions, and it's around self-love. So why are we talking about self-love? Really, to me, it shows up when we bump up against things and people that aren't working for us. We bump up in relationships that are triggering us, or we are thinking back to trauma that occurred with our own parents, perhaps with friendships where we really don't feel seen or heard, or in the workplace where we don't feel like we're being honored in the way that we wish to be. So what happens there is suddenly we have this contrast between kind of who we feel we really are and how we desire to be treated, how we should be treated. I'll use the word should. And then what's actually happening. There's like this disconnect. And so it shows up in the way we talk about, maybe we complain, we feel bad about something that's happening, spouse, coworker. There's some mirror that's being kind of held up to us where someone is not aligning with our vibration, with who we believe ourselves to be or how we believe we are meant to be treated. So what this takes me back to isn't just about like this lifetime and this current situation. To me, this goes way, way deeper. There's a whole history to even being a human and choosing to show up on this earth school, in this planet, that we really need to look at to understand why we get this polarity. I'm going to call it polarity, the difference between like it could be as clear as day that I wish to be treated with love and kindness and be cheerleaded. And then I have someone in my life who is unable to cheerlead me. And it's frustrating. I want that. I want to be cheerleaded, but that person is not giving it to me. So I have this polarity. This to me is the same stuff that is what involves why we don't have full-on peace and we're not just sitting around as humans, sunbathing naked and eating fruit. Life could be so much easier, right? But no. We have chosen to incarnate in human form in this earthly realm, and sometimes it's a challenge. It's a challenge because we signed up for that challenge. So I'm going to talk about two things as part of this in terms of self-love. How can I really embrace this feeling of self-love? And what do I do when I bump up against situations which are not showing me love, which are not loving situations? And there's two things we're going to talk about here. One is the opportunity, and two is the boundaries that we set. So when we talk about the opportunity, we need to kind of back up. We need to back up. So I'm going to tell us a little story. I'm going to tell us a little story about, in my world, in my version of all of this, how we all got here in the first place, how we got into a situation where we are humans incarnating in this earth, where sometimes things hurt and sometimes things feel painful. Because in my version of reality, there are other planets where it doesn't have to be like that. Like Venus, the planet of love. What if you could live there and it's just like love? They don't have this polarity. So what happened was, as we back up to this story, if you look back eons ago, we can even think infinitely ago, where did everything start? Everything started with source. Everything started with this sense of pure consciousness, infinite consciousness, consciousness itself. So there was no black, there was no white, there was no three dimensions. It just was, what could we think of it as? Maybe it was just a frequency, just an energy. How does energy show up? It shows up as frequency. Maybe it shows up as sound. So what was that very first thing like? I'm not really quite sure, but I do understand it to be consciousness. I do understand it to be what we call source, okay? And when we think about energy and vibration, energy is never created or destroyed. These are just literally laws of physics, laws of matter. And energy can also be transmuted. It can shift, right? We can take water and it can become ice. It can also evaporate and become a gas, right? It can just become part of the air. You don't even see it. So when we think about it that way, how interesting. This is sort of the same premise with which I work with my clients, and we transmute energy, emotions, stuff that's stuck in the body, releasing things maybe that have gotten stuck from past traumas or past lives, so we can feel the freedom in this current life, okay? It's pretty exciting. So when we look back to Source, guess what? Source wanted to get to know itself. It's kind of boring just being Source and everything's cool and it's just consciousness. Imagine that moment before you sleep where you're just in pure consciousness. You're not really, or if you meditate and you catch yourself, you're like, oh, I was there. The mind kind of empties a bit. It's just consciousness. It's just knowing. It's not trying to debate something. It just is. So consciousness is there eons ago. I want to know myself. And so you can envision that consciousness is like, let's just consider it to be like a white light. Let's say that the frequency is like a white light. And if you put up a prism to a white light, what happens? I learned this probably like in 7th grade science. It fractals into different things. It fractals into the different colors of the rainbow. So now I have this white light. I have this prism. I think of like the Pink Floyd album cover with the rainbow. And now I have difference. Now I have differentiation. Now I have the colors orange, yellow, green, blue. And guess what? Orange is not green. They have different frequencies. They have different vibrations. They have different energies. They are different. Back then, it didn't mean that there needed to be any strife or any conflict. It just was. Difference just was. Okay? And it could coexist. Difference could coexist. These different colors could just coexist. And then with this fractaling, with this differentiation, there became these sort of different beings, different races of sorts. And we can hear about, especially if you ever, I'm not going to get into the weeds with this, but if you ever study starseeds, you're going to hear about what's called the Orion Wars. Basically, we can consider, if we sort of like fast forward a lot of this information, we're going to fast forward to when Source created, there's different planets now. There's different beings on these planets. And we had what's called the Orion Wars. And what was created was sort of ego. Ego now takes difference and adds in comparison. Ego takes difference, which was just neutral, and adds in jealousy, adds in I need that, adds in lack, adds in want. And so what happened was these Orion Wars. Let's just kind of fast forward again to Earth. Earth is now a thing. Earth is created, and we can imagine that all these starseed beings, they're kind of part of all of us. Like we all have this DNA from these beings from eons ago. But what we have is a planet that has polarity. What we have is a planet that has difference. Not only does it have all the differentiation, we have like these amazing animals. Like my son loves this animal called an axolotl. It's super cute. We have frogs, we have human beings, we have blades of grass, we have flowers. Like there's so much differentiation. In an ideal world, that could all coexist, which it can. But what we have as part of Earth is polarity. Polarity is extremes of difference. If you think of magnets, right? You have magnets that want to attract one another, and with polarity, they repel one another. So now we have difference. We have longing. We have lack. We have all this other stuff that can create suffering, that can create sadness. Why? Because we also have the rainbow of emotions. We have extreme bliss and we have extreme dejection. We have extreme sadness. We have extreme grief. We have fear. We have hate. We have all of it. And if you look at all of these emotions on the level of energy, every single one of these emotions actually has its own frequency too. It has its own energy too. So when we talk about kind of raising your vibe, we actually can do that through certain practices that literally raise that frequency of our emotional being, our emotional body, to the vibration of love, to the vibration of gratitude, to these high vibrations. All right. So why does this matter? This matters because when you come to Earth as a soul, I want you to picture this. I want you to picture that you are coming from something, part of source. You are literally part of source. Everything coming is fractaling. It's showing itself. It's getting to know itself. Source getting to know itself through you. Source getting to know itself through me. Source getting to know itself through my cat Henry, right? In all these different ways. And so when you come to Earth, it's like you are coming from this vast ocean. Let's say source is like this vast ocean. It holds everything. It holds everything, this vast ocean of knowledge. And we just scoop up this one cup. We've got this one cup that comes to Earth as you. That one cup of source that comes to Earth as me. Source getting to know itself in the expression of me. Source getting to know itself in the expression of you. And so as this soul, you have a soul study or soul studies, which are probably going to be the challenges in your life, the things that your soul is meant to learn and understand. And your purpose is really just to exist and to source to know itself. How do I get to know me? And your purpose is to express itself. You get to have a soul expression. To me, one of the biggest things we're meant to really understand is that we are source. And what does that mean? If we are source, we're coming from a place that comes from unconditional love. If you think of the origins of source just simply existing, coexisting, what is it? It is love. It is the most exquisite love that we can find. When we come to Earth, we kind of forget that. We need to remember that. One of the biggest missions we have as a soul is to understand that, to learn it, to embrace it. So now, anytime you have something that bumps up against love, that is not showing you love, you not showing yourself love, or another person not showing you yourself love, it gets to become an opportunity. It gets to become an opportunity for you to love yourself. So if I have a situation where when I was starting my business, for instance, if I really needed, everyone around me to really cheerlead me. Now, I'm going to say this in two ways. One, I truly believe we should surround ourselves with the people who will cheerlead us. And if you're not, that's another story, which we are going to talk about too. But I want to surround myself with the people who are going to cheerlead me, but sometimes that's not the case, especially when you begin to up level. You may be starting from a standpoint where you were born into a situation where you just don't have that kind of support. You may have people who are jealous of you. We don't really want to put stories on what's going on for them. We don't really know. But not everyone is in that position for whatever reason to be that support system for you. Okay, so let's say I'm going to give this example around self-love of I'm starting my business, I'm really excited about it, and I'm not getting the cheerleading that I expect or want from my friends, from my parents, from my husband, right? I'm like, well, wait a second, this is really cool. I want you to feel the same vibration that I'm feeling. I want you to feel how cool this is, just like I'm feeling it. And the thing is that when we don't get that, it gives us the opportunity to show ourselves self-love. So for me to start my business, if I only relied on the cheerleading around me, as soon as I lost that cheerleading, what would happen? I would lose faith in my business. I would lose belief in my business. I would lose maybe motivation in my business because all I had was external validation, looking outside myself for that love, which actually needs to come from within. For me to have that fuel, that fire to run my business successfully, and this is like a download from source, so I'm just the channel for all this. It has to come from within. I can't rely on outside circumstances. I can't rely on people just constantly cheerleading me. If I did, it's sort of like I think of like a Hollywood movie set where it's just facades. It's just a facade. That love has to come from within. All right, it's the same thing. Perhaps there was some kind of wounding that happened when you were young and your parent yelled at you. And, the thing about it is that when we come to Earth School, we are all imperfect. We are all imperfect beings. And so maybe not for everyone, but for many of us, we get raised by these parents who, generally they do love us. You may be in a situation where that wasn't the case. It happens. And however that worked out, it gives you a soul study and it gives you the opportunity to find and show yourself that love from within. Otherwise, if we're looking for that outside of ourselves, then it's like we're trying to fill a well with the wrong thing. It's like I have this well that is going to be infinite. It's going to have no bottom. If I'm trying to fill it with kind words from my husband, accolades from my friends, good job, from outside, I will never fill that well, because that well is meant to be filled with me. It's meant to be filled with love from me. Me showing myself that self-love. Me showing myself that unconditional love. That is when I can fill that. And that is when I'm going to see things shift within my own life, when that's coming from within. So anytime we bump up against a person or a situation that is not showing us self-love, rather than feel sad about that, or kind of get into the story around that, or say how they are wrong or how they are bad or how they should have been different. We can spend a lot of energy on all that stuff, on blaming, on being the victim and all that stuff. What it gives us is the opportunity, and there's many ways we can do this, through a coach, working with me, working with a therapist, where we can heal, where we can actually be that person that can give ourselves that self-love. I remember, this is years ago, before got into my current situation, which is really my dream life with my husband and my kids and doing this amazing work. I hired a somatic coach because I was not in a great place for a lot of reasons. And she wanted me to say something like an affirmation for myself. And she gave me the suggestion to say, I am a commitment to loving myself. I am a commitment to loving myself. Like, I embody that. I embrace that fully. And I couldn't do it. It just made me want to completely just break down crying. Like, I just couldn't do it. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So instead, I wound up saying, I am a commitment to seeing myself. So I could see myself as a young child and give that young Stephanie self-love, give her the love that maybe I was really desiring, really craving. And through that, I was able to integrate what it really feels like to be in a space of self-love for me. So what we know is this: we have this vast well, which is meant to be filled with self-love, and we're not meant to get it from another. We are this soul which comes from source, which comes from this infinite sort of ocean, and we are like one beautiful drop of expression. And so what that means is that we can always go back to relying on source. We can get guidance from source. We can go back to these questions like, what would love do? If I were fully loving myself, what would that look like? What would love say here? What would love do here? All right. So that's kind of the first step in all of this around self-love. I'd love to hear your questions. I'd love to hear your comments. If you have questions on this, you want me to dive deeper, I am happy to do that in another video. But now what I want to get to is around these people who are not showing us the love which we do desire. So we get two things. One, we get that self-love. And I'm telling you, the more you're showing yourself that self-love, the more you're going to attract those people who are going to be able to reflect that back to you. Many times that thing, that soul study, that infinite well, that is lacking is what's getting reflected, right? So if I am not believing in myself, then I may get that reflected through a quote unquote friend who isn't able to show me that belief in me too, right? It's going to show in the world around me. That's the vibration. That's the attraction. That's the law of attraction, of what we attract vibrationally with what's actually going on within, with our own energy within. So when those things heal, we're able to better attract that stuff. And then some things aren't going to bother us. Like if I believe in myself, if I believe in my business, then if I were to get a trolly comment on YouTube or something, then it wouldn't bother me. Because to me, that comment it's no longer about me. It's about that person and perhaps the suffering that they're feeling. So I get to feel compassion for that person who may need to leave me a trolly comment. I don't need to get affected by that, and I definitely don't need to fear it because I have enough self-love within. See, I get to embrace that lesson. I get to embody this biggest purpose that we get to have on planet Earth, which is embracing that I get to love me. I get to have that self-love for me. At the same time, we also get to attract and surround ourselves with the people who are going to completely celebrate us. They're going to love us. They're going to be happy for us. We get to embrace those people. And if you're with someone who isn't quite there, we can release the expectation from them. Like I had to do that. Becoming an intuitive, I definitely had to release the expectation for certain people in my own life who are relatives to, one, get me, and two, embrace what I'm doing. And that's okay. They get to have their own beliefs because I feel strong enough within myself that I know I come from love. I know that whatever is being given to me, this work, it's coming through me. I really didn't sign up for it. It chose me. And if that's the case, then I get to embrace it fully. And no one's going to stop me. There's no one's opinion out there that is going to make me falter around this kind of work. And I hope that you can feel like that too around the work that you do. So if you have someone in your life who is not able to give you that which you desire, that love, showing you that love in a certain way, whether it's through a friendship or romantic partnership, the way they talk to you, the way they treat you, however that looks, then you get to set your conditions of satisfaction. We're going to call it a condition of satisfaction. Now we're getting into the boundaries talk. So on the one hand, it's sort of like a little bit of a duality. You may have certain people in your life who are just family members or even your spouse. They may not be on board 100% in a certain time, but you kind of get to bring them along for the ride because you believe in yourself. You're not going to stop just because they don't get it. That's okay. They don't have to get it. That's all right. And you get to have your conditions of satisfaction. Your conditions of satisfaction may be that you have a spouse who completely is on the same path with you spiritually. And if you're not in that space in a given moment, then you get to choose what to do with that. Like, we're not victims of our situations. We may not like a certain situation, and we get to choose. That is self-love speaking. When I love myself, I get to choose who I surround myself with. I get to choose what conversations I desire to engage in. I get to choose what energy I allow into my field. I don't have to allow any energy into my field that isn't serving me or the best and highest good. So this is where we get to set our boundaries. My conditions of satisfaction are how I live my life. My conditions of satisfaction are I get to spend a lot of time outside. I get to spend a lot of time in nature. I get to work with amazing clients who are ready, willing, and right there for the transformations. Like, they're signing up, they want the transformations. I get to be me. I get paid to be me. Those are conditions of satisfaction for me. For instance, the way my children speak to one another, the way they speak to me, everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. That's a condition of satisfaction. So if you're finding that things are not aligning right now with your job or with your spouse, like, this is the type of work that I do with my clients. This is the energetics that we get to shift into that sort of higher vibration so we can make these choices that are courageous, that are standing for self-love. Okay? So these boundaries, they stand for our loving ourselves. And then what we get to do is we get to have declarations. We get to declare, we get to stand for ourselves in a way that says, well, let's say you're in a marriage, and let's say your spouse yells. Let's say your spouse yells at you, and you're like, no, I didn't sign up for that. That's not how we communicate. For us to be together, my condition of satisfaction is when we're upset, we get to voice that, we get to talk about that, and if we get to a place where it's too overwhelming, we save it, we table it for another day, but we don't yell at one another. That might be, you might not mind that. It just maybe depends on your makeup. Maybe your condition of satisfaction is we talk things out. Perhaps you have a spouse who, due to their own trauma response, is really, they shy away from talking things out. So that may be a point of growth, of soul growth, a soul study for them. If they're not quite there yet, your condition of satisfaction might be, this is really important to me. If we want to be together, we're going to have to work through this together. Like, we need to be in agreement on this. And so we get to choose that. It may mean that you have certain conversations with your family members, and then there's other conversations you just simply don't have because what you found is that's not a condition of satisfaction for you. You get to choose, and you get to choose when your conditions are not met what you do about that. And it may not always be what you want or desire, but we can't control the actions of other people. We can't control their personal growth. Like, that's on them. We can't control if someone's going to be on board with what you're declaring, if they're going to fight it, if they're going to want it, but it feels hard for them. We can't control that. All we can do is stand for ourselves, and then based on that outcome, make a decision. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here to support. So what I'm going to leave us with here is the following questions. When you get into a tough situation, or when you get into a situation where you're thinking over something over and over again and it feels exhausting, like, should I stay in this job? Should I say something? Ask yourself, put your hands on your heart and ask yourself, how can I love me? How can I love me here? And then you can also ask yourself, what would love do? What would love do? All right, that's it for today. If you would like some additional support, you can find me through my website and grab an Illuminate session. They're right there. We really do a deep dive energetically into the energy scan of your body, of your energy system. We can go into the Akashic records and kind of see your soul's journey. And then we can shift. We can move into the space of shifting that which is not serving. Because you get to love yourself. You get to have that freedom. You get to have that beautiful thriving that is your birthright. And I'm here for it. All right, till next time, I'm Steph Zito. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.